Speaking with Dr. Miguel Faria, he is a GOP USA commentator. Dr. Faria, thank you for being back on NRA News. You have an interesting piece up now, Guns and Freedom, Civilian Disarmament and Tyranny. Sir, why did you feel it necessary to write this piece?
Well, I felt that it was necessary because there had been a naivete type of talk that what is happening with the UN could never happen here because, the United States of America has a lot of guns, and it would be unfeasible to try to disarm the population.
Yeah, and give us some perspective, Dr. Faria, because a lot of people think that because the United Nations is talking about it and we've got our own government, we don't have to ever worry about this being a threat. Why do you think it's a threat here?
Well, it can be a threat because the way that we're going about it through the United Nations, it can't happen because we have in our Constitution the supremacy clause that many scholars believe that that the treaty power can supersede the Constitution itself, including the Second Amendment. And of course, we just had an election in which President Obama was reelected, and he has a new Senate, and he's gained 3 more seats. And all it takes is for 2/3 of the Senate to pass this small arms treaty that I believe threatens the Second Amendment of the United States of America. And I felt that going back to history and discuss what has happened in other countries will be useful in this debate about what can and cannot happen here.
I'll tell you what, it's so useful, sir. And give us an idea, give us a flavor. I'm looking at your comment on your commentary here. Those, as they say, the famous saying, those who do not understand or know history are doomed to repeat it. Tell us what has happened like this, similar in the past.
Well, let's compare, for example, what happened in Budapest in Hungary in 1943 and what happened in Warsaw in 1944. Well, in Budapest, in Hungary, gun control laws have been passed. They were very draconian gun control laws. The people were disarmed. And I understand that 50 SS men were able to deport 500,000 Jewish people, including thousands of women who ended up in concentration camps. 90% of them were executed, were exterminated, really. And all was carried out during the war when the Axis were in a very difficult situation, and yet they were able to exterminate 500,000 people because the people had been disarmed in Hungary. On the other hand, in Poland, several dozen Jews were able to keep the Nazis at bay for several months. Actually happened more than one time. And they used Molotov cocktails. They were able to obtain a few guns, including rifles, military and hunting rifles, and they killed in one of those Warsaw ghetto uprising more than 300 German troops.
Wow.
Poland continued to be a problem for the Nazis. It just derailed the German high command. They were not able to maintain the momentum that they had when they were advancing through Eastern Europe because of a few brave, courageous Poles who stood against the Nazis, and because they were able to obtain some guns. That is a specific example that took place about the same time.
Right. So 50 armed people were able to do that because the population was unarmed. That is amazing,
that's exactly
sir.
Right.
Wow. Speaking with Dr. Miguel Faria, he's GOP USA commentator, wrote a piece, Civilian Disarmament and Tyranny, Guns and Freedom, and I'll tell you what, you take that, what happened back there in World War II in 1943, 44, and you move it to a context of today, and look what's happening around the world, over in Egypt and other places. It's much easier for a tyrannical government to control an unruly population if they're unable to be armed, to defend themselves. So the formula still works today, and a lot, like you said, Dr. Faria, a lot of people worry, well, that can never happen here. That can never happen in America. What do you say to that?
Well, I hate to bring this up, but just a few years ago, during the Republican administration, George Herbert Walker Bush, 1993 to be precise, 1992, we had the incident of Ruby Ridge, in which a woman and her child were killed because supposedly her husband had an illegal shotgun. And we had initially the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearm, and then the FBI rescue team, who really perpetrated an infamous massacre in which 4 people ended up killed just because a family who wanted to be left alone in Idaho were not allowed to stay to be left alone because supposedly there was one illegal shotgun. And then we go and we move to Waco, another even worse and more tragic episode in 1994, when again the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearm, and then followed by the FBI hostage rescue team, this time under a Democratic president, and under Janet Reno as the Attorney General, in which dozens of people, I believe 76 people, men, women, and children, were exterminated in a conflagration because supposedly they had this group of religious people, the Branch Davidians, had illegal firearms. This is insanity, and it happened in our own government, the country that had the most freedom in the world, and yet it happened here. So it can happen anywhere. I just don't see how people can forget what happened just a few years ago, one year after another, 1992 and 1993.
Wow.
These incidents took place, which are infamous crimes that were committed by government force. And, of course, because of that, we ended up a couple of years later, in 1996, with the Oklahoma City bombing, which is another infamous tragedy in which many people were killed because of the retaliation.
Right.
These things should not happen, but they do happen. They do happen.
Absolutely. Dr. Miguel Faria, GOP USA commentator, thank you, sir, for reminding us. Thank you for the great work you're doing to help us to be reminded to protect our freedom. If we are not ever vigilant to protect our freedoms, we will lose them. Sir, and folks can see your piece there at GOP USA?
Yes, they can.
Very good. Thank you, sir, for the work you do. Thanks for being here on NRA News. Dr. Miguel Faria.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.